Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing a quick install of my brand new ROTOR ALDHU cranks on my brand new BMC TrackMachine TR01. So without further ado, let's dive into the things you're gonna need to get it done. All right guys, like I said, there are a few things that you're gonna need to get going here. Obviously, you're gonna need your cranks, your crank spider. If you're installing a chain ring, like I already have on here, 61 tooth affinity ring, you're gonna need your chain ring bolts. This is 144 BCD, 5-bolt pattern, which is pretty standard for the track, so you're gonna need that. Then a 5mm Allen, if you're gonna go ahead and install those. Obviously mine are already in there. You are gonna need a torque wrench. I like to torque everything to spec properly, and you're gonna need a big boy because you're going 35 to 40 Newton meters. My small Park Tool torque wrench does not do what it needs to do. Obviously you're gonna need the bottom bracket, the threaded sides here. Check that out. That's what you've got for your ROTOR Track Bottom Bracket. And then really, obviously you're gonna need a little bit of grease. You are going to need your 10mm socket or Allen head for the torque wrench, because that's what's gonna tighten down your actual cranks. And then of course you're gonna need this BB30 tool that typically comes with your ROTOR bottom brackets. Looks something like this on the inside. Now, of course, this is a 3/8 drive plug-in, so you can just go ahead and pop this onto the same torque wrench that you already have ready to rock. All right, folks, so the first thing you're gonna wanna do is, if your bottom bracket is not clean, make sure to get in there and wipe it all out, get it good to go. Mine's already cleaned up and everything. The next thing you're gonna wanna do is go ahead and it's time to apply some grease. So I'm gonna put a little bit of grease right here on the threads. And this really just protects against corrosion and whatever else might decide it wants to sneak its way in there. And we're gonna apply some grease to the actual threads on this as well. All right, once you're greased up, obviously wipe your hand off. And now the key point with this is that it actually goes opposite of your normal direction, right? So you have one for the drive side, one for the non-drive side. But keep in mind, I'm actually rotating against my normal righty-tighty, lefty-loosey setup here. So you're gonna keep on running it in until you feel that that's hand tight. And the torque spec is actually shown on the ROTOR tool is 40 Newton meters. So that's what I'm gonna go ahead and set my torque wrench to. Back it off the hair. 39.97 should be good enough. So this is a 3/8 drive. Once again, you can just pop it directly on to the torque wrench. Like I said, it goes the opposite direction of normal, so make sure you're going the right direction with it. You want to be turning this way and then ratcheting the normal tightening direction. So I've got the Park Tool stand here that helps make sure this thing is seated nice and easy. All right, now we're to spec. We're gonna go ahead and jump over to the other side, do the same thing. Put a little bit of grease down here in the frame and then get that applied to the threads. Same thing here on the non-drive side piece of the bottom bracket. All right, folks, now just keep in mind on this side, the non-drive side, we're actually going what would be considered our normal direction. Go to the right this time. So get it hand tight in there once again. I already have my torque wrench set up to 40 Newton meters with the BB30 tool on there. I'm gonna swap it over since we're going the other way this time. Get it on the bottom bracket. All right, now we hit our 40 Newton meters. Bottom bracket is installed and ready to rock. Let's go ahead and jump over and take care of our cranks. All right guys, time to go ahead and install the crankset. So this is where you're gonna need to actually get that bottom bracket tool off of your torque wrench. And this is where you're gonna need that 10mm Allen head socket. Now guys, the torque spec on the cranks is actually 35 to 40 Newton meters. So you can go ahead and bring that down a little bit to like 38, 39 is probably about right. All right, there are two really thin gaskets that are hanging out on your track spindle here, and they look like this. So put one on each side and make sure that the one stays through before you put the drive side in. Like I mentioned before, I've already installed my 61 tooth affinity chain ring here. It's 5-bolt 144 BCD, which is pretty standard for most track chain rings, and that bolted up to the spider no problem. I also went forward and installed the actual drive side crank arm to my spider already. Now there is a position indicator on here that tells you the correct position of the crank in reference to the spider. And then once you get the crank arm on the other side, you're gonna wanna make sure it's exact opposite of that. That way your pedaling is normal and not all crazy and goofy. I couldn't imagine what would happen if you installed them incorrectly. All right, so first thing we're gonna do is get back to our grease here, and we're gonna go ahead and grease up a couple sections of the spindle, or axle, I guess. It's gonna be right around here. And that way, these contact points are nice and greased up. And try not to get it everywhere, guys. I'm notorious for being like the dirtiest non-mechanic in the world. So if you have any grease left, what I'm gonna do with it is actually put it on the inside of these threads here. Just wanna get the crank on the other side. Already got grease in here and I don't have to mess with it. We've got our drive side crank installed, and then also our chain ring and everything ready to go. We're gonna go ahead and get this through the bottom bracket into the bike. Presses in nice and easy. Now let's jump over to the other side and we'll go ahead and get the non-drive side crank arm installed as well. All right guys, first thing is first, don't forget to go ahead and install your little flat washer there. And then you're gonna make sure to put your cranks on, like I said before, exact opposite of the drive side crank. That way you're not pedaling goofy. And now obviously this isn't gonna seat all the way, so one thing I like to do is just grab that socket that you're gonna use in a second, and that's what I use to hand tighten this down. If you have a 10mm Allen, you can do it that way as well, but you should be good to go. Double check your cranks are proper, and then once they are, you're all set to go ahead and tighten it to spec. All right, so I backed the torque wrench off. You can see it's at 37.94 Newton meters. We're gonna go ahead and get this thing wrenched into place. All right, so you'll notice I actually got the drive side all the way tight first. Totally fine, doesn't really matter. I'm just actually doing them both because it's easier to jump back and forth that way. And then also make sure you just kind of jump back and forth a couple times to make sure that you're to spec. All right folks, there you have it. I've got the all new ROTOR ALDHU cranks installed on my BMC TrackMachine TR01. And we are all set to go race on the track. Now, obviously there are other resources out there that will give you guys the lowdown on putting the chain on. So I'm not gonna go into all that right now because I don't wanna mess with my wheels and everything else. So, with that being said, take care, have a nice day, and if you wanna check out some track racing, I'd recommend checking out this video right here.